Many people don't understand Nei Qi Gong because they are impressed by the Qi emissions, the Qi manifestations that we see on the videos that I shared of my teacher. I even done my first Qi emission, as you can see in one of the previous videos, where I explained a little bit actually the depth of the path. Because the real goal of Nei Qi Gong is not to do a Qi emission. A Qi emission is an external manifestation. It's a consequence of the fact that we have done the right thing. Let's put it in this way. We have practiced in the right way. We have acquired a certain level of mastery over our mind, emotions, energetic aspect, and the body. But the real goal of Nei Qi Gong is actually human evolution, spiritual evolution, if we can use this word. I think actually is the only way that I feel it is the right space, because the goal is to transcend and to refine our personal qualities, which usually are bad habits, bad thinking, obsessive thinking, bad health, unstable emotions. We are not functioning properly. And human beings usually, when they are left on their own in their life, they tend to be attracted by this kind of destructive behaviors, let's say negative manifestations, negative sides of ourselves. We don't know why, it's just the way it is. In fact, if you just look around, you see that most of people, they are totally external, they don't even pay attention to how they feel, what they think, how the body is functioning or sitting or standing. You can see actually the dramatic consequence of this freedom that we have at the end of the day of approaching a divine aspect of our life, or just be attracted by the matter and the external things, which has nothing wrong, of course, in itself. But going back to what I was saying about the real Nei Qi Gong goal and direction, which is what we don't see in the videos, it's what we cannot even discuss, because it really relates to a level of existence which is unspeakable, and we have to have a direct experience of it. And similarly to other kind of religions, and Nei Qi Gong is not a religion, doesn't have any belief attached to it. We can divide, let's say, for the sake of convenience, and also because in this kind of religious explanation, this idea is presented, the aspect of reality in three levels. Let's say in the Christianity is divided in the Jesus aspect, so the physical aspect, the spirit, so the grace, and the Father, which is beyond, at the same time is immersed in everything. In the Vajrayana tradition that I was following, I was a disciple of a Buddhist teacher. You might know this if you have been following the channel of my content for a while. I was a disciple of a Dzogchen Vajrayana teacher. And the same concept is expressed in Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, where Dharmakaya represents the absolute, the unspeakable, that level of reality which thought and senses cannot perceive, but it is a direct experience possible for human beings. Then we have Sambhogakaya, which is like, corresponds to the spirit in the Christianity, Christian kind of explanation, which is the middle way. It's a more dense manifestation, so it's still subtle of reality. And then we have Nirmanakaya, which actually the dense aspect of our life, whether we can call it action, or whether we can call it the physicality. And this kind of analogy of these three levels can be found also experientially in the Nei Qi Gong path, and this is what is the real deal here. I never talked maybe in this way about this explanation, also because my understanding is growing, and I think there's never going to be an end, not to an intellectual understanding, because knowledge is limited, but to the experience that we can have deeper and deeper of existence. And I'm presenting it in this way now because I can feel and see, recognize certain analogies between these three aspects of existence, which in reality, as we know, even in Christianity, 3 and 1, they are 3 but they are 1 at the same time. Even in the Buddhist explanation, 3 aspects but they are 1 at the same time. I'm not here to make any kind of religious teaching which is far away from my current standpoint in life, where I think that because they are part of us, we can explore it and we can verify, and then maybe we can see another kind of cultural explanations of life. We can trace certain things. So what I want to say is that of course we cannot talk about the Dharmakaya or the God, the infinite level, because that is an experience possible that should be the goal of any spiritual path, of any initiative path. Unfortunately, is that sometimes we go into it with too much goal-oriented mind, whether it is sometimes getting distracted by this energy manifestation, which at the beginning could be fine, but eventually the goal of Nei Qi Gong is to get us closer to the divine essence of life, of ourself and life, which is not different. So to do that, actually, we start from the base. Even I can see this similarity in the Buddhist approach. I don't know if you know anything about Buddhism. We have different kind of levels. The monk level, which is renouncing everything. The Mahayana level, which is about compassion, equanimity. The Vajrayana level, which is the tantric approach, is the not tantric in the stupid sense that we see nowadays around, which is getting diluted in so many nonsense. Tantric in the sense of changing our psychology, the way we see ourselves and life, to prepare ourselves for something from above to come, and to clear the business once forever. And Dzogchen is the natural state of mind, is the great perfection, is the highest peak of the Buddhist expression. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because in the Nei Qi Gong path, and here I'm starting to explain actually my view of how the Nei Qi Gong path is actually a vertical possibility towards from a more dense manifestation of ourself, the physicality, to a more subtle, more refined, and approaching ourselves to, let's call it divine, let's call it infinite. I don't even know how to call it. I call it life most of the time, which is more simple. So we see why is the importance of working with the base. So ourselves, the physicality, and train our attention, and purifying our attitude and our thoughts, and being humble. This is something that I see most of my students, not all of them, because I'm kind of open. I sometimes push away people that I think they're approaching this Nei Qi Gong path in the wrong way. But in general, I see a good approach, although the development of our mind, purifying our mind, and being humble is actually, and developing some meditativeness in the mind is actually the base for that middle aspect to happen. So before I talked about, let's use this Buddhist term, just for sake of explanation, not because they are more important than others. I talk about a level called Nirmanakaya, the physicality, Sambhogakaya, which is the spiritual aspect, and then Dharmakaya, which is something which is beyond our understanding. And in the Nei Qi Gong path, we start from the Nirmanakaya, the base. And of course, when we start to work on ourselves, especially if we have good qualities, and we are moved at the beginning by good intentions. We want to become better human beings, which is not something that everybody wants at the beginning when they start out the path. They want to have the superpowers. But if this is the kind of approach that we have, little by little we start to change. We change in the way we see ourselves, in the way we think. There are no obsessive thinking. We act differently in life. There is more center. And if you are one of my students, you can probably relate it to all these kind of elements that I'm listing. But there is a practice in the Nei Qi Gong path which is called Nei Qi. Now it's been moved to the 9th basic program. There are 9 basic programs. I don't know if you know how it works in the path. You do 2 months of each program and you can move on. It can be done online, all this aspect of the training. But the Nei Qi practice is a very important turning point. For me, it was the most important thing that happened in life because it really killed the the seeker, the spiritual seeker. The research stopped the research. Why? Because the only way to do that is actually to get in touch with something which is beyond your intellect, because the intellect keeps producing desires and wants is never going to be satisfied. Let's say in this case, you want to achieve the superpower energetic thing, you go there and then you want to conquer the moon and then you want to gaze at the mountain and make it disappear. All this desire and constant demand from the mind, they come. But in the Nei Qi practice, which is basically the meaning of these 2 words are Lin is spiritual and Qi means energy. It's a practice that, it's a method that can help us enter in contact with the spiritual energy. And this is not something that actually we imagine or we pretend to do, or we start to dress or walk around in a particular way. No, nothing like that. It is a practical experience when it happens that it is important for our personal growth, for the spiritual practice, but it can really transform the whole life. But the mind, and we need to be ready for it, because it's not something that we can decide to achieve, such as I'm going to practice 20 hours per day, Nei Qi is going to happen. No, you can do it for life, it's not going to happen. You can do it for a month, it's going to happen. For a week, it's going to happen. It's different. And what I'm trying to say is that the quality of our mind, the purity of our mind, who we are, influence this touch that happens from life, this grace that goes down from life, which I call it spirit, referring to the 3 levels that I explained before: the Jesus level, the spiritual level, the Holy Spirit, I think it's called, the God level. We are in the middle. Holy Spirit, spiritual energy, Sambhogakaya in the Buddhist term, and it's grace. We don't know when this happened, but if we put the right focus in the work we're trying to do here, if we really understand what Nei Qi Gong is about, which is not having some silly superpowers. Nei Qi Gong is about human development in a real way, not in a fantasizing, but in a practical way, experiencing certain things that will transform the way that we perceive and live life and explore life eventually, because what we are able to perceive is much more enhanced, it's bigger, it's more subtle, and I'm not here to list possibilities that are part of the growth of practitioner, also because each practitioner has a particular inclination, again according to the way we are made to life, to our natural inclination. But the possibility of entering grace, entering contact with life is there, and the path is conveyed through the Nei Qi practice. When we talk about Nei Qi Gong, I rarely use this word internal alchemy, alchemical transformation, but this is what it is about. And I don't use that on purpose, because you see how the marketing era and the confusion we have around people bragging for who knows what. I prefer to stay quiet and calm about this topic, but this is really what it is about. Nei Qi Gong is about exploring these three levels. And of course I'm not gonna say anything about the third level, because it cannot be explained, it can be experienced. As I said, this should be the real goal, I think, of human beings. Going back home to the source, to the Dharmakaya level, to the God level, to the infinite level, experientially, not intellectually, because intellectually we're never gonna get there. So Nei Qi Gong is about this. Nei Qi Gong is about refining ourselves, human beings, by turning at the beginning, our bad qualities, our aspects that are not functioning, our obsessive thinking, by turning all those qualities into positive qualities. So first we work on ourselves, just on ourselves, and maybe at the beginning we start even for a selfish reason, which is good. We want to improve ourselves, we want to improve our life, we want to grow energetically, but at some point in the path this change has to happen, and the change, let's say, is there in the Nei Qi practice, at least for me, in my opinion. But to do that we need to change the way that we're doing things, the way that we relate to the teacher, the way that we see the work that we're doing. We have to encompass a bigger picture into this, and then we can prepare ourselves for something which is a gift from life, from grace, to come and to touch our life and transform it completely. But again, in a very practical way. I'm not saying just, be devoted to life. It's great. It's a good way, actually. It's a good way because it kills our egocentric attitude, our selfish wants. It helps, but it's even better if that kind of devotion comes from a personal experience of that level of reality, which then push you even beyond that. And this is what I wanted to say today, because I feel that many times Nei Qi Gong is not clearly understood, maybe because of the videos and the marketing that we have out there. But at the end of the day, here I am trying to express it better and to put it in the right frame, because it doesn't matter what we can acquire here personally, skill-wise. The best thing we can do, and I think the most important thing we can do, is to go back home, to transcend ourselves on a mind, a body level, to die while we are alive, and to discover what's beyond this visible that actually is not totally our own. It's a constant projection of life that will never give us that sense of deep contentment and oneness with everything, which is all that we want in life. And we look for it in different mediums, sometimes with a girlfriend, sometimes with acquiring things, having more, but it's a tough path, in the sense that requires dedication. It's not as fast as to go into an ayahuasca ceremony and experience something which is actually not the real goal at the end, and I've done it several times. It's not a fast process. It might be fast, depends where you are, because if your mind is already moved by positive qualities, by real, sincere, honest way of grow, might be very fast. In my case, the basic practices. At the time, Linchi was the fourth program. So after less than a year, I had possibilities which were beyond my expectations. And all those things that I was reading in the books, mystical books, when I was 15 years old, 16 years old, I was always interested in spirituality since I was very young. And they start to become practical experiences. They started to make sense. And I'm nobody here because compared to the unexplainable principle behind life, we are just a little thing. And I think when we understand our limitation, the opening up for the real potential starts to pour into us, and life becomes meaningful.